What happens when a child loses a parent, either physically or emotionally due to death or divorce? This can include the birth of a sibling or what happens if a step-parent arrives on the scene. I am Deidré Wallace, a relationship and corporate therapist. The clue is always in the gaze. Point 17. As adults, we know that when we're confronted with trauma or a loss, we can sometimes struggle to find the right words to express our grief or sorrow. Expecting a child or a teenager to do the same is a lot to ask. And this is why when a child loses a parent, or indeed both parents, due to either death, via illness, divorce, or even when a sibling is born and a mother's attention is diverted and so on, they usually find it very difficult to communicate exactly what they feel, especially if they are very small. But sadly, adults are not always aware of the range of emotions children can feel when they lose a parent. Children may even be sent out to play, and as a result, they may seem not too bothered by the goings-on, but what they feel deep within may come as quite a shock to many adults. Child psychologists have over many years studied child development and children's response to loss, trauma, and so on. Through play therapy, it is evident that children do actually feel a whole range of feelings, but because they lack the emotional language to articulate these feelings, they tend not to, especially in the way we expect them to. What is also evident is that sometimes when a child is asked to communicate their feelings about an event or trauma, and if for whatever reason they feel under pressure in any way, they may come up with what they think is expected of them, rather than the truth about what really happened or what they may really feel. This can result in misunderstandings. Also because what a child says or reveals compared to what an adult might understand can lead to two different viewpoints. This can of course be very frustrating for all involved, which is why also in police investigations involving children, a child psychologist is always asked to assist. Also, when children lose a parent, often they can start fretting about the possibility of losing the other parent too. This could lead to feelings of stress, and it may lead them to act out and question whether they are truly safe. This is a natural survival instinct that we all have. And a child may even try to push the surviving parent away as a test. And kids in therapy often also report that when they experience loss, they often question whether it was their fault that their mother or daddy left, or whether they could have done something to prevent a parent from leaving or dying. This can happen on either a conscious or unconscious level, and it could lead to children feeling that they need to be punished, and if they aren't punished, they may also find ways to punish themselves. This could lead to children acting out either at school or at home, and usually once they have worked through the behavior, it may quietly disappear. If, however, the feelings are not addressed and are allowed to fester, a child can withdraw, leading to destructive behavior which could continue into adulthood. Sometimes the destructive behavior can be subtle, other times extremely obvious. For example, homework may be left undone versus extreme violent outbursts. Worse still, and for example, if a child had been naughty, or if they'd said something nasty before mummy or daddy died or left or died, this may result in further feelings of shame, self-hatred, guilt, along with immense sadness, leading to depression, lack of self-worth, confidence, and so on, if not immediately addressed. Also, if a child had bonded more with one parent than the other, and if it's the parent they love a lot more that dies, the loss and consequent emptiness can be twice as hard. And this is why it is so important to understand that grief has many varying emotional aspects which can be hidden and buried if not properly or fully understood. But as we already know, buried feelings tend to emerge, often much later or even in adulthood, and usually when it's most inconvenient. This is why it is so important to get immediate support for a child, either via other family members, friends, but most importantly, via a child's teachers and possibly even the resident school counsellor. Because just like with adults, if issues are not addressed, they could escalate. And it could escalate especially if the living parent forms a new relationship. This could then lead to a whole host of new and uncomfortable issues. And depending on how a situation is managed, children may find that they cannot ever allow themselves to like anyone new in fear of being disloyal to their deceased parent's memory. And if a step-parent arrives, this could cause children to wonder if their deceased parent had been forgotten, and so on. This could cause a lot of distress and confusion. But also, if children have unaddressed emotions of grief, they could choose to project them onto their new step-parent. This might make things very awkward, and it may even seem that everything was the step-parent's fault. A child could do this by playing one party off against the other, and strangely enough, in many cases, this could still be part of the grieving process, as well as testing mummy or daddy's love or loyalty. But also, children may behave like little angels in front of their own parent, but once they leave, they could transmute into obnoxious little devils. This is usually a way of managing their fear of losing their own parent's memory. And often it is also a warning to the step-parent to be careful, especially if they fear that their living parent may love the step-parent more than the deceased parent. And if the step-parent has children of their own, they could fear that their living parent may love the step-parent's children more too. What children need when there is grief is a lot of loving discipline and a lot of understanding and communication. The death of a parent is a dreadful blow. Understanding this and understanding that often a child will miss a parent dreadfully. Indeed, they will miss the love, the intimacy and understanding that a parent offers. This, of course, would apply especially to a child who has lost their mother. The shock, the numbness, the sadness, the denial and even anger can result in utter despair, which can persist for months and even years after. Thankfully, nowadays, we also have access to videos and plenty of photographs that can retain memories of what a parent looked like and sounded like. But if the children are still struggling emotionally, then family counselling might be a good option to help children deal with the loss. Families are very complicated, let alone having to deal with a loss or a new step-parent, or indeed a step-parent with a family. And creating a merger between the two families can result in a further upset and trauma. Also, in the title, I mentioned losing a parent to a sibling. When a newborn arrives, sometimes a mother can be so fully present with her new baby that the sibling or siblings can feel rejected, and they too may be forced to undergo a form of grief because they never have their mummy to themselves ever again. However, it may also create rage, temper tantrums and jealousy. Helping a child work through their grief and the change forced upon them can be crucial for peaceful family dynamics henceforth. And doing this either as parents or via therapy is advisable for healthy emotional development. Right, so did you experience the loss of a parent? Can you remember how you coped? And what did you feel about the loss, also now as an adult? How did you cope with the arrival of a sibling or indeed a step-parent? Once again, I would also encourage you to start a journal if you haven't already. So as I go through the various points, you can jot down how you think or feel my knowledge is helping you understand yourself better. And do comment or subscribe if you wish to learn more. Thank you.